Shalom Aleichem Rabbi Sai. This is Yehuda 11. The program is 11 at 11, heard each and every Leil Shishi from 11 to the midnight hour, which is an apt reflection of where we're holding in the devolving culture of the world. And l'tzarenu, to a certain extent, the devolving religio-spiritual culture that is pervading Klal Yisrael. And I am your humble librarian, cataloging this descent and giving you occasional streaks of lightning, enlightenment, Hashkafa 101 to 303 from the Ziknei Yisrael of the Gedolei Hador She'ava that I was privileged to serve and whose approbations I received both Baal Peh and B'Ksav. Rabbi Say, as promised, as indicated 2 weeks ago, we are going to continue with an ongoing discussion, if I can borrow a term from our Christian co-citizens, the ongoing crusade that is going to be a leitmotif, a raison d'etre of this particular program, which is to have the zchus of being megala to the American public, to the B'nai Torah, to Erliche Yidden, Hasidim, Yereim, Shleinim, who listen to this program, the tremendous betrayal that is ongoing, perpetrated by Machvivayich Meharsayich Mimeich Yetzeu, perpetrated by Israeli Charedi politicians from the Charedi parties, the Degel, Aguda, Shas, etc., and the Asskanim, who know the truth about what is going on, and the newspapers, the Hamadiyah, the Yated, etc., that are part of this conspiracy of silence, this wall of silence, and kafi the silence, and kafi the betrayal, we can understand the tremendous damage that's being done, not only in terms of full court press that is resulting daily in the drafting of B'nai Torah, don't fool yourself, of B'nai Torah into the army, B'nai Yisrael into the army, but the tentacles of this anti-spiritual octopus extends far beyond the army, and it's, as I mentioned, it's a full court press to de-Charediize the Charedi community, to make them conversant with academia, with jobs, with the pursuit of a better life, gashmias, etc., all to the detriment of the very core values that have kept us as hein am levoded yishkoin ubagoyim lo yischashav. Meir Rabbi, so once again we have with us Poloni Almani, who is I suggest he should be anonymous to give us the information, and I would suggest that people who are serious might take a pen and paper, because a little later in the program we'll give you the numbers of hotlines, etc., where you can keep on top of this information. But before we get into the proceedings of this evening, unfortunately, this can't be literally B'chatzos Beis Hashem in Yerushalayim, but it's a bechina, if you will, a little bit of bechina of a Yerushalayim, of an on-air Beis Medrash and Beis HaKnesses, if you will, that we're gathering together as Nidbru Yirei Hashem Ishal Re'eu. And therefore I want to give a Todah Lekel Barabim that in the last hour or so, my son Simcha Zisel, who got married shortly after Sukkot last year to the Erlinger family in Toronto, where he's a top mechanech, Rabbi Erlinger, my mechutin, Baruch Hashem, they just had a baby girl in Toronto, literally within the last hour and a half. And Haidul Hashem, as I say, L'cha Ezbach Savach Toida, and I expressed HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'ani Tefillah, that this should be another branch in the Erlinger and Levin family. It should be L'Torah, L'Ben Torah, L'chuppah L'maisim Toivim, and that we should share in many, many simchas, and there should be only simchas for Klal Yisrael. I'm very edified. I also want to mention once again, right before we begin, our very provocative, incisive, and informative interview. I want to say without exaggeration that Rabbi say, if you're Erlich Yidden, you will never, ever be the same again after hearing the shocking information that is going to be disclosed tonight. But before that, I just want to mention once again, as I've said many times before, it could be that I'm spitting in the wind, but nevertheless, a little hishtadlus I have to make. When Esther Hamalka went into Achashverosh, she was ostensibly in the Megillah, she was talking to the king, but really she was talking to the King of Kings. So ostensibly I'm talking to you, but I'm obviously talking to the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Melech Malchei Amlochim. I'm doing my job. I'm doing it at great personal cost. As I mentioned before, Domin Tarti today, I'm making $400 primarily of interest payments to keep this monthly, mamish, a shocking amount of money that I don't have, aside from the cost of the radio program. And once again, I want to appeal to people to be a part of this Kiddush Hashem. You can go to the Chesed Fund, and it's the Kiddush Hashem Morality or Morality Kiddush Hashem Fund. I think it's number 8055. And if you could help out in any way, or you can contact me by rabbilevin@gmail.com. If you could send me an email that you want to help, I really need help. Having said that, without any further ado, I want to welcome once again my guest, Pliny Almoni. And can you sent me in the emails, you sent me literal documentation from lawyers who are busy defending B'nai Torah. That means when they're drafted, that means they have to come in front of a judge and manifest and demonstrate that they are B'nai Torah and they're truly learning yeshiva, and that the Israeli government had no right through subterfuge, etc., to draft them.
Right, actually, that's accurate, but it's even more than that, because this whole concept of gutting before a judge, that's only these organizations with their klugschap and their understanding of the legal system. They hired lawyers and they themselves advocate. But if not for the advocacy, they would never even be in court. They would be straight in jail in a dungeon, and if they would break and they would sign on the dotted line, they'd be drafted. They wouldn't even get the opportunity to have a court case, because the way it works over there, it works KGB style. They drag you out in the middle of the night. They say you have no Mamet Ben Yeshiva, whatever, get into jail, get into the army, pick your poison.
So therefore, in the next 90 seconds, Meir Rabbi Say, you have been hearing the bluff that I myself am hearing. Not only was I hearing it, but as I explained, my own brother, Rebellia, who has his ear to the ground somewhat, who himself is involved in the Olam HaTorah in Yerushalayim and who's had many children, sons and daughters, and he says we don't have the slightest problem. In the next approximately 120 seconds, we're going to substantiate to you that there is a significant problem. In the next 120 seconds, you're going to hear it. And I'm going to encapsulate that, and then Pliny Almoni will elaborate. The encapsulation is that several of the Lakewood Rosh Yeshivas signed to this effect, I understand.
3 out of 4, yeah, 3 out of 4.
3 out of 4. Not only that, there's Shmuel Miller, the son, Yibad L'chaim Tei Meruchim V'Avigdor Miller Zatzal. He had to be persuaded, but he saw the evidence and he was involved.
I just want to interrupt on Shmuel Miller. It's a secret, but I think this is the right forum to announce it. Shmuel Miller has many individuals announced that he's very interested in gathering. His number was 15,000. Others say it was 50,000, but he has very much a strong will. When he saw the evidence, he wants to make a massive protest. He knows that it's very hard working against Balabatim, people who have the money and the power and who have what to lose politically. So he understands that it's, practically speaking, it's a long shot, but he has expressed his will to many individuals over here in Lakewood. He really wants to make a massive rally outcrying this terrible Gzera Shmad, as he calls it. He wants about 15,000 Bakram. He has these dreams. Just to point out where Shmuel Miller holds. Yeah. Anyways,
I want to take a side detour that doesn't count in the clicking of the 120 seconds. So we're putting everything on hold. I got to tell you, what I do is I YouTube this program. I have as much shaykhs to technology as I have to flying to the moon. So everything by me is a double chiddush. So anyhow, on the side of my YouTube screen, It says live chat. This is the first time I'm seeing this stuff because we're broadcasting live on YouTube right now. So anybody who goes to 11, Levin, the number 11, that's my YouTube channel, and they can see it live as we're going. So every minute or two, there's another thing. Hey, brother, it's you and me. I love listening to you. I'm in LA. I love when you say the Jewish word. It's awesome, etc., etc. So it's very edifying, and we're getting out the word, and people should inform other people. Those of you who are seeing this on YouTube, don't be stingy. Don't be stingy. Don't keep it to yourself. Get on your social media, get on your status, and let everybody know this is this would be, if this was the New York Times, lahavdil, this would be a page one expose, because almost 90% of the Charedi community does not know what's going on. So what we've said so far is two things to substantiate. Number one, Rosh Shmuel Miller was involved in a fundraiser in Lakewood. 3 of the Rosh Yeshivas signed for it. Okay. The second thing we said is that I saw documentary evidence of these law firms of lawyers that are charging approximately, in certain cases, at least 5,000 shekel for their preparation and going in front of court. And this is happening literally to, I understand from Pliny Almani, to at least 100 new Bachrim a month. Yeah. And the overwhelming majority of them are then eventually exonerated. In other words, they're proven to be B'nai Yeshiva, B'nai Torah, and therefore they're thwarting the plan of the Zionist Israeli government. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, and therefore there was something like, I can't remember, did somebody say something about $1 million shekel or something like that budget?
Right, so they were, the person involved, one of the heads involved, he just jumped in. But Shmuel Orbach, he was a lone voice over here. Everybody told him, he's crazy, because 7 years ago he called it. I just want to give a little bit, maybe a minute or two introduction over here for people to understand the background. The last 7 years has been unfolding very fast and very undercover. No one really was following in the press. There was nothing written on it. So I just want to say real quickly, everyone knows there were different shittas in the Gedolim, how to address the impending chekagis, which now would be Tumei. It's already 7,000 Bacham that are in the army the last 2 months, 2 years.
How many? Wait, slow.
You have 54,000 quotas that demand 54,000 Bacham over the next 10 or so years. They need to go in increments of 3,000 a year, 3,300 a year. This is minutia of the law, and there's election design coming up in less than a month in Eretz Yisrael. This is the main reason why they went to because I think the Lieberman refused to negotiate even on a small psik, and the Charedi establishment, they agreed on 99.9% of the chekagis, except for 1%. They wanted, they called it a shina cosmetic change, and Lieberman didn't agree, so they went to re-elections. This is the chekagis that we're talking about that already fell. The old chek already fell 7,000 shams in 2 years, and over the next 10 years, it's supposed to sell 54,000 Shiva Bachman in life. That is the chayk. That's in a nutshell what's been going on. And 7 years ago, the Gedolim saw this coming without getting into the minutia of Chok Tal, and it expired, and the new one without getting into Israeli politics and Ivrit legal language, just to save the kids. So there were the Gedolim saw this disaster coming, and there was a machlekes how to deal with it. Now, this machlekes is different than all other machlekes over the last 2,000 years. All of the machlekes are in the Gemara, Amoraim, Tanaim, Amoraim, Rishonim, Achronim, Mishnah Berurah, Chazon Ish, Reb Moshe, Saparov. All those machlekes, all machlekes have to do with halacha and hashkafa. There were other, disagreements, maybe politically, but that was all halacha and hashkafa. And we all know that the attitude in hashkafa, halacha and hashkafa, is small people like me, maybe great people like Rabbi Levin can get involved, but small people like me do not get involved. You just follow your Rebbe, you do your own thing, and everything's great. You don't look over your shoulder, what's he doing? You have a Rebbe, if he's the Belzer Rebbe, it's you have Belz. You don't say, well, Belz is only 20,000 families, and Ger is 30,000 families, so then we should really do what the Ger Rebbe says, and then we don't do that. Everyone goes like their way, and halacha hashkafa is to mind your own business. But the machlekes that happened 7 years ago on Tafshinayim Day, 2012, when this impending chekagis was coming, before it fell 7,000 neshamas and threatened to sell another 54,000 neshamas, before any girls had any problems with as a byproduct of Giyas Banas that's going on that we're not even talking about over there, before all this shenanigans, they saw this impending chek coming, And they said, how do we combat this? Now, how do we combat this? The question, that wasn't a halachic or hashkafic idea. It was more practical. How do we tell the Fraya government and their Meshatzei Pa'ula, those that are the inside hitmen, how do we tell them, hands off? Hands off. And if not, what's the best way of doing battle? On slaying the dragon. This is strictly tactical and strategical. Nothing to do with halacha and hashkafa. Strictly in the front lines, in the thicket of the battle, what's the best way to kill the most, to ward off the most Zionists that are coming to kill us? This was the difference of opinion. The Ated and all the English-speaking and Hebrew-speaking newspapers and filthy websites. I say filthy because that's what Yashav called that in his letter. And other Gedolim said that the websites that have news, even though most of us follow it, Yeshiva World, Matzah, all these things, I didn't call it these names, so I don't call anyone names. I'm just saying that the letters, if anyone wants a copy, could send us an email of all the Kolkars, all the Gedolim, Aserd, all these websites, and also that's why I say that. But anyways, all these, they're out to get us, they're out to sell us, and the question is how do we, the website say, well, we go with Ashkafa of this Gadol, we go with Ashkafa of this Gadol. And really what they meant is we listen to this Gadol, his advice. Now, advice from a Gadol should be taken seriously. We're not questioning that. But we should definitely differentiate between Halach Ashkafa and just good, sound, logical advice. Now, Shmuel Orbach and other Gedolim, they Achredus, and Rav Moshe Tzadka from the Svadish Kehilas, and many other, I guess, if we add it all together, about 500 Rosh Yeshivas and Gedolim Rabbanim from all different, we don't measure who's bigger and who's smaller, just a number, about 500 off the cuff, 70 from the Svadish, that big, Dan Shishvei, and the Achredus, you have the whole web over Eretz Yisrael, and we have from the Litvish Krai and many Gedolim. So, without measuring weight and size, about 500, maybe a little less, Gedolim held that the best way is no compromise. We tell them, you want our kid, you want quotas? No, you're not getting one. Whoever walks into you, if a guy's not a Ma'arid Ben Yeshiva, if he's not a Yeshiva, so we have no control. I mean, what can we do about it? If you take the army, you take the army. But any Yeshiva, something who your law legally says you can't take any Bachar, they have a Ma'amad Ben Yeshiva, which means Yeshiva Bachar status, you're not getting one of them. And the Zionists said, no, we're going to take quotas. We're not getting most of them, but 3,000 we're going to take a year. Or 2,000, they were negotiating numbers then, 1,000. And they said, and this has worked for 2,000 years, no negotiating with terror. America has that mahal. All Western countries have this mahal. Sometimes they break it. No negotiating with terror. Other Gedolim held, no, that's the wrong way. If you want to make sure that they don't get their filthy hands off our Heilig Yeshiva Bachar and Yungalai, the best way to do it is either negotiate with them or show them we're not so strong or lay low. And they had, this wasn't a hashkafic debate because both of them said that the main goal is to keep the Bachar out of the claws of the Zionists and their Lishkat Sagiyas and their draft officers and the military police. And the main goal is that they shouldn't be dragged out in the middle of the night and the hinges on the door broken down. That's the goal. So anybody like the Ated in Hebrew and English was saying this hashkafic debate, hashkafa, what does hashkafa have to do with this? The question is, how do we keep them out of our bedrooms? So if you have a way of doing it, now the problem over here wasn't there was nothing tried and proven. It was just more, sound logic. Now because of this, 7 years later, the statistics show that one side was 100% right, and one side was 100% wrong. Not 99% right, 100% right. And I'll show you the numbers in a second to show you, because I'm a numbers guy. I don't know hashkafa so much or halacha. I'm very good with numbers, math, this type of stuff. Yeah? You still with me?
I'm with you. I just want to say as follows. What you're saying is very important, but I want to give you a little tip. Just you're very passionate and you know all the information. So you're talking at a rapid clip. And in order for the Olam to pick up when you're saying certain things you're saying, everything you're saying is very, very crucial. But by you, it's Hergel Nasa Teva, and you're saying big Kedushin to people. So I want you to slow down. And before we go further and we get into numbers, I want to repeat slowly one of the first numbers that you said. You said that a deal was cut, a deal behind the scenes, that in the next decade, there should be a totality of approximately 54,000 Charedim. I don't know if that means exclusively yeshiva student Charedim.
And people who spent X amount of time in yeshivas. Now, if we could find those Bachram on the streets, so then fine. If we find 54,000 Bachram on the streets that used to be in yeshiva, that's fine. But if let's say we only find 2 on the street, then where are you getting the rest of them from? You got to go into the yeshivas, and you got to get 54,000.
Okay, slow. You got to slow down in talking. So the first Yesod you said was 54,000. The second Yesod that you said was that in the last year or two, they you can actually count noses, so to speak. 3,000 Charedim are now
3,300 last year and 3,300 the year before, approximately. So 7,000.
So we're talking about 7,000 Charedim are.
I mean, actually 7,000, and then just the exact numbers from this and last year. That's not clear exactly how many hundreds, but 3,000 and change for each year.
And basically, the lawyers are dealing with an additional 100 or so, an average.
The lawyers have saved over the last 4 years 4,000 of one organization. A different organization they've saved also multiple thousands. That's Merkaz Atala, run by Shmuel Aaron Weiss. Exact numbers I forgot to confirm with him before our interview. I could try to confirm with him also numbers close to 4,000. So we're dealing with the amount that were saved were close to 10,000 were saved with legal channels, and the ones that were nebach were drafted either enticed or forced or threatened were 7,000 over the last 2 years, and over the last 4 years, I think totally there, I don't have the exact number, closer to 10,000.
Okay, so now I want to tell the Olam as follows. B'makom sheyesh chilul Hashem oyim v'noira, it's poshut that ein cholken kavod l'rav. In other words, we've reached the stage of boiling over point that what's happening is, and you could see in Hashkafa, this is mamish the Maisa Satan. I can't remember which Gadol said, maybe it's the Chavetz Chaim, that he'll let a person do daven a whole day, and he'll let him do chesed a whole day, and he'll let him do everything. He shouldn't learn. So what we see here is something phenomenal. On the one hand, we have something that's called the global village. We have instantaneous communication within a moment, within an hour of it being known in Tel Aviv that a younger man was lost at sea. Everybody in the world had it on their social media, on their webs, or whatever it is. Now, the Davar Tumua is that with all of that, for instance, they said by Epstein, the Oisvarf, that it would be impossible to keep a conspiracy like this quiet if he was murdered. I'm just saying this. I don't want to get sidetracked. I'm just saying, yet this conspiracy that's already affected thousands and thousands of yeshiva bachrim in Younger Light, and that on a daily basis, an average of 3 or more bachrim a month are being picked up and having to go to court. And in the last few years, it's in the area of 7,000 to 8,000. And yet, supernaturally, we know nothing about it. Nero is fiddling while Rome is burning. This defies logic. And this is a raya, ipso facto, jujitsu, flipping it over Yiddishly. The only way such a thing could happen, and we should be fasamt, blinded, is because it's mamish the atzas hayetza incarnate. It's mamish a maisa of Erevav. It's mamish a maisa that has to do with Amalek. So now let me ask you this. Before you go further, I'll just reconstitute or repeat what you said, because I don't know if the Olam Chap. What you were saying is like this: when there's a machloikus in Torah, Beis Shammai and Hillel, it's a machloikus. When there's a machloikus in Hashkafa, there's a machloikus. But seemingly there is no machloikus. Kula almuloi pligi. Everybody understands that. I forget where the Gemara is, but recently somebody quoted me the Gemara, where the Gemara says explicitly that the Hatzlacha of the Milchama was the fact that the Yidden was sitting and learning Torah. So we understand this. This is immutable. This is basically like one of the Animamans. So therefore, there's not a hashkafic debate about this in the Charedi circles. Yes, in the Hesder circles, by Mizrahi, there might be shitas that they hold, Torah and Derech Eretz, Miliami, whatever it is. As I mentioned before, I had a son who felt like this. And in his early 20s, after many, many years in yeshiva, he made a decision And Baruch Hashem, he's a shalem still, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. And he has 3 kids, and he's in Eretz Yisrael. And Baruch Hashem, he didn't go to L'Tar Yisrael. But for all I know, that's an exception to the rule. The point.
It possibly was the rule years ago, but now that there's a chayk and there's actually changes within Nachal
Haredi,
within the Haredi sector over there. Over there, there's coerced Gilui Arayos, which we can't say on here exactly all the details, but just let's suffice with 450 Bachrim went in. 30 days later, they felt so dirty about themselves. They all threw off the yarmulkes and shaved off their pants. As we have pictures that have come onto the Marechas of Lamed Al Mashena, the hotline that we run, and there's only 2 out of 450 that are still Shomer Shabbos. And what does Shomer Shabbos have to do with this concept? Is because they made coerced and forced Gilui Arayos to 450 Charedi Bachrim in Nachal Charedi, even though they were separate barracks and they were their own, so quote unquote kosher environment. Still, they managed to be machti out of 450, 448 of the Bachrim in a very, very strong way, in one of the ways that are Yehari Bal Yaver. And this is something new that wasn't 5-6 years ago.
Let me explain to people. Listen, Sadik, let me explain to people these 2 nekudas that you were saying. Okay, the first nekudas you're saying like this. This is not a hashkafic issue that there was a machloikis and hashkafa between, let's say, Rev Steinman Zitzal and Rev Orbach Zitzal. This was in terms of tactics, how to deal with this. That's number one.
How to stop it? How do we stop this?
Right. The tactic of how to stop it. Now, and what you're saying is the sad proof of the pudding is that we see that they're succeeding in a tremendous accelerated way, mamish, to do a lot more in the last few years than ever happened before. So the old rules and whatever the hasagas were, and one can theorize. Rabbi Sai, we know this from the time of Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector. I think he had a shamus, a gabbai who himself might have been an Adam Choshev Ad Ma'od named Lipschitz, Rabbi Lipschitz.
Yeah.
Now, he said that the one who controls, I heard it Bishma, I didn't see it Biksav, that the one who controls the access and is the shamosim to the Gedolim, they have a tremendous hashbah in what the goal ein la odem elamash ein avroyas. It's a there's a certain siyata deshmaya, but there's also a koich of the Satan, and we've seen this time and time again. This is not from yesterday, and it's not from the day before. And I repeat again what Rev Avigdor Miller said. When they asked him a question, he said it's all totally in the information given to the gadol. Now, the next nekuda is people are saying to themselves, it's shocking. How can it be a statistic that in 30 days everybody becomes shayna and oisraf and everything else? So I just want to, and what did they do exactly? So I don't know, but I'll give you one example to the olam of what they did to lower the defenses. I forget the Lashon again, the Chazal. The Chazal describes when there's a circle of men dancing and a circle of ladies, if it's in a certain way, I think if the men are the inside circle maybe and the ladies are the outside circle of fakeret, they use a term, it's like burning brush, mamish, it's like a fire. So imagine if you take Bachrim, you take younger light, you take people in their prime, and then you have young, attractive, pre-testika girls who are teaching them Krav Maga, the combination of karate and the fighting that each soldier has to learn with close hand-to-hand combat. Imagine if you have that going on. So you understand that this is mamish, burning fire. This is the kind of stuff they're doing, and I don't know, but I can assume that in various cases it went further than this. So this is where we're holding. Now let me ask you a very pointed question. Somebody's with an S has to be negotiating, actually discussing from the inside, Charedi Asskanim politicians who are discussing with the powers that be in the Defense Department or the military or whoever it is, discussing with them quotas and things like that and how it's going to be produced, etc. Do we have any idea where these meetings took place? What was the content? Who is doing these things?
Sure, there's a Vada. There was something called Vadat Shaked, and there were other committees that were set up specifically. And it like they called it. There's actually pictures of this committee. I haven't seen videos, but I've seen pictures, and it shows people in white shirts with their aides, like Daphne and Litzman and Parsh. These guys who were all good guys once upon a time. They were appointed years ago. They were sent to their jobs by different gedolim, and they have a very impressive track record of doing amazing things for Yiddishkeit. Mayor Parsh did major things for Yiddishkeit, and Ari Deri under the leadership of Chama Vadia had unbelievable Siyata D'Shmaya. And Moshe Gafni, we used to call him Rav Moshe Gafni, now we call him Mr. Moshe Gafni. He did unbelievable things under Rav Shach. And then, like the saying goes, when the cat leaves, the mice make a party. And unfortunately, all three cats, the Vadia Yosef, Chama Vadia Yosef, and Mayor Parsh, the people he was afraid of in the last generation of Chassidish Rabbis, and unfortunately Shach, they went on to the better world. These three mice in the treasure houses of the Israeli Defense Forces and all the.
They
made out bandits. Parsh now owns a hotel in Yerushalayim and getting into the politics over here. But they've done a lot of damage, damage over the last couple of years.
I want to pause because I want the Olim to fully understand what I'm talking about, what we're hearing over here. So I'm going to now give you 3 anecdotal pieces of evidence to the contention that has been made, the assertion that has been made by our guest, Reb Ploini Almoni. Here is number 1. When I was in Eretz Yisrael 10, 12 years ago, successfully fighting the Mishkav Zocha parade, that year it was pushed off to a stadium at the edge of town. It did not take place in the streets. That year, one of the things I was doing was I was lobbying Knesset members, and I had read a small story that made its way to New York, where Mayor Parsh and 2 or 3 other people laid down on the street in front of the Mitzad HaToma when it was about to start, and the police had to come and take him away. Okay, got that? It made its way into a New York newspaper. Little paragraph or 2, nevertheless. The Kiddush Hashem of that was Oyin V'Noira. So, I was in Eretz Yisrael, and I said to myself, if Mayor Porish as one individual could Mamish get into the media in the media capital of the world, New York, for making a Kiddush Hashem, imagine if all 2020 Charedi and Dati Leumi 2025 Chavrei Knesset would announce to the media they're laying down and they're prepared to be arrested by the police. I don't know if it would stop the parade or not, but I know the Kiddush Hashem and the Meniah, the preventing of the Kitrug of Tokia Eretz Eschem, Kemaisa Eretz Kanani, it would be Oyin V'Noira. And the whole world would know that the Jews do not stand, they stand in opposition to the licentiousness. Okay? So what did I do? I went over to the late, great Rabbi Avram Ravitz and buttonholed him in the lobby, in the corridors of the Knesset. And I said, I have an Eitzah.
Oh, no.
I said, I have an Eitzah. Do this. So you know what? He got highly insulted that I had the chutzpah to suggest. I was pagay in the covered. Okay. I don't know. I believe that I probably told Reb Meir Porish to his face the same thing. And he machte it weg. Maybe his attitude was, been there, done that, etc. Okay? But I couldn't get this to go off the ground. And then I went to one of the Ziknei Yisrael Mamish, and I'm not going to mention his name. But by the way, when I was in Eretz Yisrael, I had support from Rechaim Kanievsky. I had support, personal, Reb Michael Levkovich, Rav Avadia Yosef. That's my second anecdote. Before I get weiter, Rav Avadia Yosef, I went in, Eli Yishai was the head, then Derry was in prison or somewhere, wherever he was.
Yeah.
Eli Yishai took me in. I didn't even ask him. He felt so embarrassed by what we were doing. He says, I'm taking you into Rev Avadia, me and Rev Ephraim Holzberg. He took me in, and I had to tell Rev Avadia Yosef what was going on, what one of his Knesset members was trying to make a deal with another Oisvav to sanction, to agree to a pshara. It'll let it go in Tel Aviv, but it shouldn't be in Yerushalayim. And he was very upset. He turned around to Eli Yishai. So I saw this up front. I went to Mordechai Eliyahu. I told him stuff. I went to the Erloya Rav. I told him stuff. And afterwards, they wouldn't let me get near to Rav Avadia Yosef. And they wouldn't let me get near to the Erloya Rav. That's the way they play the game. Now, I went to this Zaken B'Yisrael, and I said, we got to do something of this and that. He said, what's an Eitzah? I told him, the Chavrei Knesset, they should get down on the ground, and they should be accompanied by Rabbanim. Imagine you would have 300 Dati Leumi, you would have Dov Lior, and you would have Rabbi Deutsch from Kol Torah, and this one and that one. This would be massive. First of all, it might have prevented, or it might have made that tens of thousands of Yidden would follow suit. Okay? So the Zaken B'Yisrael laughed at me and waved his hand in my face like, like Meshiga, they're not going to do it. It's not going to happen. And that was the end of the conversation. Now, I don't get the disconnect. We say, Ki Olecha haragnu kol hayom, and we give cases in the Chazal that a person was going to do bris milah and they're going to throw him to the lions and this and that and everything else. And we talk about Project Witness with Ruth Lichtenstein, the Gerah who uses the first name Ruth Lichtenstein of Hamadia, right? But we talk about Holocaust. But a little Mesiras Nefesh. So I'm explaining to the Olam, make no mistakes about it. This kind of chazerai happens. So now you're telling me it's possible that we could identify the exact people who sat on these committees who are doing these negotiations?
Yes.
If we can, question number 2, if we can do that, why is it that these people are not confronted and asked, you're on this in this committee, and how do you do such a thing? How do you make such a deal, etc.?
Actually, not only were they on the committee, but Moshe Gafni, just 3 months ago, he took to the public radio with tens of thousands of film listeners. And he said, they asked him point blank, Moshe Gafni, actually it was a secular one, so actually there was hundreds of thousands of listeners. And it said, you as the Chaver Knesset, I see that the Charedim are coming around to the army. We see a lot of people in the army now, a lot of Charedim. I understand that you had a hand in that. What is your opinion about Charedim in the army? And he said, there has to be an army. Whoever doesn't learn has to go to the army. Now, obviously, who doesn't learn? Who decides who doesn't learn? Who's learning? Mashgiach, the Rosh Yeshiva? No. The IDF decides who's learning, how long they're learning, and who's yeshiva bachar. Now, it doesn't make a difference if you're in yeshiva. Not getting into that. So they said, Mishalom, if someone doesn't learn, should be in the army.
But let me ask you.
The shkaf is someone who doesn't learn should go work.
But let me ask you.
It's not us, sir.
Let me ask you this question. There's a Maisa, I don't know if it's with Meir Porush, I think it was with his father, Menachem Porush. The Gerah didn't like something that he did. They beat the living daylights out of him and put him in a hospital years ago. I'm not asking for that, I'm not advocating violence, but I'm asking a simple thing. Why aren't there 1,000 people outside the house of Meir Porush, Lamoshel, and Litzman, and the others to make a major tumult, day 1, day 2,
You said the name of Porush and Litzman. Now, just to fast forward to the end of my answer, Litzman has a newspaper read by, I would say roughly off the top of my head, 150,000 Charedim. Porush has a newspaper called Amavasa read by roughly the same amount, a little less Charedim. Gafni runs a newspaper, Yated Neman. I mean, he's like a political figure. He's not an editor, but he has political influence. And that's read by, they claim, according to their stats, 200,000 Charedim. So here we're talking about, close to maybe accumulated 500,000 from people who are reading these newspapers, who are showcasing these Chaver Knesset as the defenders of Yiddishkeit. For example, they'll say, look, they were about to draft all the yeshiva bachrim and round them up like hours. And we saved everybody, but unfortunately, we weren't able to save 3,000 a year. We were only able to save whoever is still in yeshiva. So they come and they view, and that's the power of the press and the spin. And that's what Trump decries as fake news media. And anytime they try negotiating logically, you hear the left, the liberals, the radical left, there's no substance over there because it's all spin, it's all fluff. As soon as you get down to the arguments, there's nothing there. And right now, we're having this interview, we're talking logic and different stuff. But that's the power. They have the press, and in their press, it's fluff and all kinds of lies and distortions built on other distortions and other lies. For example, they would have emptied out all the yeshivas. What does that mean? Everyone knows civil disobedience. They can't even handle the 7,000 bachrim who are not showing up and who never showed up in the lishkas hagiyas in the offices. They can't deal with them. They already left them free, and that really takes us to what really the punchline of this interview, and that is what we were saying that 7 years ago. Remember, we were talking about predictions.
Correct.
Right. So we were saying the Gedolim sat together and they said, what's going to be the best way to stop this, what they call the spiritual Holocaust. The spiritual Holocaust impending with this. What's the best way to oppose it if it doesn't work politically in the Knesset? What's the best way to oppose it? And there were two shittas over here. Now, I hate the word two shittas because shittas makes it out hashkafa, and this has to do with strategy. So, but if you want, I'll call it shittas. So there were two shittas. One side said, "Oh no, we can't do civil disobedience. We can't do that. They have tanks and guns, and they got armies, and they have military police, and police officers, and they have databases and Shin Bet and the Mossad, and they have everything tracked. And Rishayon, your license with the DMV, the motor vehicle, everything is trackable. We can't do civil disobedience. We can't do that. So what we have to do is that if they say that they want michsot v'yadim, they want quotas every year to have a certain amount of bachram, let's just say okay. And then let's just continue going to the enlistment offices, the draft offices, and let's send the bachram there when they turn 17, 18, and let them go and file for their papers. And let's hope for the best, because for sure they're going to get their papers, because if they are yeshiva bachram, they have a ma'amid ben yeshiva, so then you have one Israeli law working against the other law. One Israeli law says we need to have X amount of bachrim, of charedim in the army every year. The other law says that if you're yeshiva bachar, you're pater, ma'amad ben yeshiva. So let's hope that every bachar that goes into the draft offices, the law that says that you're yeshiva bachar will trump the law that says that demands an amount of quotas for the yearly Charedi enlistment. So one side said, let's continue doing that and hope for the best. Shmuel Orbach said, wait a minute. From a strictly logical, strategical standpoint, this is subject to fail. Because you have these two laws working against each other. Besides the fact that it's regular Russian roulette, who would play Russian roulette with their son? Take a pistol that has two bullets, one is empty and one is full, and spin it and put it to the baby's head and pull the trigger because maybe it won't kill him? So that's one logical argument that Shmuel Orbach said, and the Rav of Yerushalayim, the guy of the Eid HaCharedis agreed, and another 500 up on him, like I mentioned earlier. Rav Moshe Tzadka, he's the eldest Sfardisha Gadol, he agreed, and all the Rav Shachs appointed Rabbanim on his bezdin, the Sheres Yisrael, they all agreed, like Rav Israel Arbach or Rav Shmuel Deitch, all the elderly Gedolim of that generation, and he started a newspaper, Yated, the Rav Shach started, and all the Rabbanim that were in charge of the Yated. At the time, they all got kicked out for their views, but all of them agreed to this derech. So this was the derech of Kol Gedol Yisrael, and then there was one gadol. Some people say it was the gadol. Some people say he was misinformed from the politicians of Aaron Leib. I don't want to put judgment on that because I don't have enough information. I just could tell you what everyone else knows. And he said no, that's not the way to go. And basically, Shmuel Orbach's way was more logical, and everybody answered, it might be more logical, but Lamaisa, Steinman is 12 years older than him, and we have to go the oldest trumps. And Shmuel said this is not about hashkaf and halacha, this is just about, logically speaking, we don't play Russian roulette. And number two, besides Russian roulette, we all know that if we all say, no, we're not going to the Lishkas Hagiyas to get our p'turos, to get our dichos, to get our deferments, we're going to have 100,000 people, without any status, and they can't just round us up. There's not enough room in the jails, and the Gzer is going to be bottled, just like Giyas Panas in 1953, which the Chazon Ish said, I'm dying over this Gzer, and Yitaka died. And in 1959, when the Brisker Rav died, he said he's going for the belts and the Gzers. And just like all of them, Shavina Rav, just like they all said, that with mass civil disobedience, and we all say no. Going with the famous famous conversation. Ben Gurion had the Chazon Ish. Ben Gurion said, "We got guns. We can force Kiev upon us. We can force the Yeshiva Bacham into the army." And the Chazon Ish said, "Very nice, but we're even stronger than you." So Ben Gurion said, "Well, what's stronger than our guns?" He said, "Your guns are only as strong as long as we're afraid." That's what he said in 1951 by the meeting, 1953. But as soon as we're not afraid of your guns, we open up our jackets and we say, "Shoot." Then what's the power of your guns? And Ben Gurion was schooled, and he understood that. And, all Gedali still understood that. And Rav Shmuel was going in the derech of the Chazon Ish, and like the Brisker, the Yashiv. I just saw in a sefer just came out called Dibber Shmuel, the Gila Sefer Dibber Shmuel, and in there they quote that he heard, Rabbi Eisenthal, he's a Rav in Ramot in Yerushalayim, he said he heard that Rabbi Yashiv said that Rav Shmuel is the Chazon Ish from our dar. And he had this derech of the Chazon Ish, of not compromising and to school the Zionists with good logical arguments. And so therefore, the Shmuel said, civil disobedience, guys, nobody stepped foot into that Lishkas Agiyas. And because the newspapers were already at that point not in the power of Shmuel, they all went out against him, and they said he's radical. Guys, we got to go to Lishkas Agiyas. Let's play Russian roulette. Hopefully it'll turn out well. And let's fast forward to, we're holding Av. What are the stats? Shmuel Orbach had 7,000 Bachar Miningolite to listen to him. All those guys who didn't step foot in Lishkas Agiyas, it's actually more, but currently we have 7,000 on the list. They all were saved from the army without any exception. So 100% of the guys who listened to Shmuel are now safe and sound. And not only that, but if you guys stay till the end, we'll even tell you an interesting story about what happens when a cop finds one of these guys. What do the cops do?
Wait. What do you mean that they're saved? They don't have any paperwork with a patur.
They have no papers, but because they cannot deal, every time they threw one of these guys into prisons, the whole Yerushalayim got shut down. All the light rail trains got shut down. There was such heavy losses with hiring extra police officers and horses. It was impossible to fill the prisons with these people again and again. The civil disobedience like Gandhi and Mandela, and Martin Luther King. There's only so much a government and police could take. They cannot deal with civil disobedience every day. And so now, anytime they see a Gibor Chayil, which is a code word for the Yerushalmi people who don't listen, or they see a Ben Aliyah, which is a code word for Shmuel Oros people who don't listen, they run the other way. Just a friend of mine who actually he's a Ben Aliyah, he was in the car, he was sitting in the back seat, and he was driving. And he wasn't driving, but the car was driving. And the person who was driving was speeding and wasn't wearing a seatbelt, which is 2 tickets. The cop pulls him over, says license and registration. And 3 out of 4 of the travelers were all Bnei Aliyah, people who were really the warrant for their arrest. They have to be thrown into prison. Now, one of these guys reached out for the back seat, told the cop, "Here's my ID." Showed him the ID. The cop took the ID, ran it to see what it is, and he saw that this guy is a Ben Aliyah. He has to be in jail. He has to be in the army. He's a draft dodger. The cop went running back to the car, and he said, "Say, Lech, get out of here." Because if he says, if it's registered that I caught you, I'd have to arrest you. And once I arrest you, the cop said, the commander said we shouldn't arrest any of you guys because it turns over the whole country. We cannot deal with you guys any longer. So now it's 7 years later. All 7,000 have Anania covered around Amud Eish. Nothing happens to them whatsoever. As a matter of fact, some of them even were able to leave the country because of the Asskanim and lawyers, not to get into the minutiae right now. But they're even free to travel, which boggles the mind because there's a warrant for their arrest. And then Nebuch, how many? The 7,000 Bacham in the army that got trapped, snagged, and enticed and threatened. 100% of those 7,000 are who? Nebuch, the people that fell for the newspapers and who fell for the mainstream media and the politicians and the gatekeepers who told some of the Gedalim that no, this is the best way to go. Don't worry, we have your backs covered. So here we have not a machlokes like Hashkafa, Elu ve'elu. No. We had a bet. 2 people bet. Either 2 Gedalim or politicians, whatever you want to say. 2 sides, 2 shitas. And they said, this wasn't like something that has to do with mystical and you have to be able to read the Kechavim and read the palm of your hand. This is something you just have to watch the numbers. It's 7 years later. The people who listen to Shmuel 100% without any exceptions whatsoever. Anyone tells you the opposite, please show it to me, and I'll be willing to be my dilemmas. But from the papers that I saw, and from the Asskanim that I know, and the lawyers that I spoke to, not one exception. There was never ever a bar who listened to Shmuel didn't go to Lishon who had problems. And not only that, now they're al yad kiyad melech, the way they're treated. And Nebuch 7,000 neshamos, actually more because over 7 years it's even more. It's over 10,000. But over the last 2 years, 7,000 neshamas. Shmad, why? Because they walked into that stupid Lishkas Hagiyas trap, and they fell for all this garbage. And now, 4,000 from the B'nai Torah Sfardim, the Eagle B'nai Torah Sfardim, they were saved, Baruch Hashem. But another 100 every month have to be dealt with, getting red tape and bureaucracy. Why are they getting these problems? Because these naive, I call them stupid, it's Nebuch, they're just following the leader. They're following the herd. But Nebuch, these naive, stupid people walked into that Lishkas Gias trap, and a large percentage of them, 4,000 over the last 4 years, and about 100 a month, and about 10 a day, get snagged and dragged, enticed and threatened into the jails and into the army. Nebuch. So here we have a situation where there wasn't a machlokes gedolim elu ve'elu divrei Reb Chaim. Don't give me that garbage. Nothing to do with elu ve'elu, not Allah hashkafa. This was strategy. One side was proven by history. Historians will say he was 100% right, Rav Shmuel Auerbach, without any exceptions whatsoever in the history of gedolim. It never happened. Somebody was 100% right, 100%. It's such a politically charged situation. It never happened such a thing in recent memory. Somebody with Rav Moshe Feinstein by Agunas, they say such a story that with all the thousands of Agunas after World War II, the Holocaust, no one ever came back. And they say after Yom Kippur War, Hamavadia, 3,500 Agunas he passed, and none of them came back. He was talking fine. You hear this about Gidul, you hear once in a couple of decades such stories. And here you have, from 2012 to 2019, you have one side proven 100% right. He bet, Reb Shmuel bet. You listen to me, you won't go wrong. He bet this. I mean, he didn't say you won't go wrong. He said this is the best way. And the other side said, nah, let's negotiate Russian roulette. And Nebuch, the trains to Auschwitz, the spiritual crematoriums are smoking away. The black smoke is coming up. As 7,000 are there, and now just last week, 300 new Bachurim and Yungalite were just sworn in by the Kaisel to the army, and their neshamas are going up to the spiritual crematoriums of Auschwitz, and unfortunately this is continuing, and unless we get the word out fast to say who's right and who's wrong. And I know it's politically charged, and I know what I'm saying is not easy to hear. What do you mean? But that Gadol said this. I know I'm not in charge. I'm not God. I could just report the facts. I could just say I did mine. We have to do ours. Just look at the facts, see what's going on, and do the right thing. Don't look over your shoulder and say, he's going to beat me up. There's a guy that went over to Penny Lipschitz. He's the head of the TED. And they asked him, why are you reporting? This was Gies Banas. It wasn't even politically charged because it had to do with Gies Banas. Three ladies. One was an almana. One was a older lady. Was standing outside giving out brochures saying what are your rights for the girls. So they shouldn't walk in. And if they walk in, they shouldn't get tricked and enticed to enlist. And they came and they threw them down. They dislocated Mrs. Cohn's shoulder, Mrs. Partsovitz, another lady, she's a relative of Nachum Partsovitz. They also damaged, they some physical damage to her, and they threw them into the back of a policeman. They arrested them for giving out these brochures. It's like KGB Russia. And a younger man went over to Penny Lipschitz and said, why are you reporting on this? He said, Apikarius, and he punched him in the face. And how do I know the story is true? Because I was that person. So here you have it, that anyone who's trying to do the right thing just to get the word out and just to innocently ask questions and try to get people who have a voice. Yated Neman in English, Hamadia in English and Hebrew. Anyone who tries, maybe we can, as long as they feel that they're going to look bad, they're going to look stupid, because the Yated Neman in English for the last 7 years said, nah, don't listen to Reb Shmuel, he's radical. And then he was proven wrong. So he had egg on his face. So instead of saying, I'm sorry, I had egg on my face, I want to do tshuva, right? You have to do, every Yom Kippur we do tshuva. What's the big deal? But for him it was much harder because he publicly did these averos, publicly for 7 years. And how he cursed out tzaddikim at tzaddikim emes in honor of the words of politicians and negotiating with, and because of that, it's very hard for him to say I was wrong. So what does he say when somebody walks over to him and says, why are you reporting on this? And he knows there's no answer. So what's the best thing he could say? So what I would have said if I was at a newspaper, I would have said, I'm listening to the Gedolim. You have your opinion. You write what you want in your newspaper. This is my newspaper. That's what I would have said.
Correct.
But that's not what Penny Lipschitz said. You know what Penny said? Boom! Punch in the face. This is what's going on. This is why it's very hard to fight this battle, and this is what Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Levo, what you're doing with your radio station and the hotlines that are popping up. This is the opposition. We're the grassroots. We're the refuseniks. Well, and there's a newspaper in Eretz Yisrael, Apelas, and there's a newspaper in America, Lahavin, and they called the Mama 1 KOLDMAMA1 every week. They have all the stories and the pictures of the news stories of what's going on, and they're breaking the silence. And then there's the Sentry, which is a Google Groups, which is an email called the Sentry email at gmail.com. They also have a daily updates of what's going on with the new cases. And just last week, there's another case of a girl, American girl, going for seminary. And the volunteers outside told her, don't go in. They're like, no, my mother's Israeli. My mother's Israeli citizen. I'm just going to take care of papers. And the girl went in, and they're waiting, and she wasn't coming out. And after a while, she came out in tears. They tried breaking her and doing inappropriate things, not for the radio, but basically, Baruch Hashem, because she was prepped and everything, by her mother not to break, so she didn't. But they didn't think there's a problem going into the Lishkas Hagiv, going into regular government office. We're from a Western countries. We don't care. We're not scared about going into government offices, but next to show the Lishkas Hagiv is a trap. And these stories are not reported by the Antenna Media or Yeshiva World. And this is a travesty, and this needs to be corrected. And Baruch Hashem, these lone people, myself, Rabbi Levin, and these newspapers, which are growing by the day, Baruch Hashem, the Ivrit line that we announced last time, Kav V'Maracha, they have 40,000 daily listeners. Baruch Hashem, the word is getting out. Kol Zak in Yiddish has tens of thousands of listeners. There's Zaka Satira also has about 10,000 listeners, and we have Lamed Al Mashenu in English. That's growing by the day.
What is the number of the English hotline?
The number of our English hotline is 646-585-3056. That's the number in America. There's an Israeli number also, but the number in America is 646-585-3056. And Baruch Hashem, the listeners and the interest is growing by the day. I just got off the phone earlier today with Rav Amram Blay. He's a great grandson of Rav Amram Blay, the great Isher Shalayim, who was Aymed Paris, and he has an organization called Yivada Bagayim. And over there, he just sends out video clips, professionally done. And it goes to 50,000 of his followers. Many of his followers are secular media people. People in CNN, people in Fox News, people in Israeli Arutz Shava and Israeli Jerusalem Post. And just a couple of weeks ago, he had a clip he sent out. It not only went out to all 50,000 of his followers, but one of his followers alone, it went out to 170,000 of his followers. So Baruch Hashem, the interest is growing about the police brutality against the Charedim and about this program to de-Charedize them, and the protests that happened in the street by the few of the brave people who go out in front of the horses and the water cannons. And Baruch Hashem, the word is getting out there more and more. And Baruch Hashem, in America we have these venues. I wouldn't say it's too little too late, because Baruch Hashem, it's growing more and more, but it's too late for those 7,000 people. It's too late for the past, for the Hashtaka, the silencing, the gag order, the international gag order that the Zionists and their Charedi controllers and the gatekeepers that they made over Klal Yisrael really took its toll. But Baruch Hashem, now it looks like it's slowing down. And the army just released 2 months ago, in June, that for the first time in years, there was a dip in Charedi enlistment in the army. And so most people don't know why was there a dip. I mean, if anything, it's becoming more popularized and more normal and more regular. But we, who know the facts, and we know there's something called Igud Bnei Torah Sfardim, who just saved 4,000 who were supposed to go to the army, and there's Merkaz Hatzala, they saved upwards 1,000, and there's the girls' organizations, Yehudis, and Bnei Tzir, and Leisira, and a bunch of other ones, that they save tons and tons of girls every day, every week, every month. So this attributes to the dip. Even though the Zionists are working overtime with recruiters, they get paid per head of every yeshiva bacher and every girl that gets enlisted. But Baruch Hashem, the Tzaddik Kedusha, we have people like Shmuel Miller in America who are making kinusim to raise money, and we have people like Rabbi Schechter in Brooklyn who are attending kinusim and are making phone calls to help out on this maracha. People like Makil Kotler who are not afraid. They'll say, "Oh, I'm not going to give you any money to your yeshiva." He doesn't care. He does what's right. He had a great father and a great grandfather, gave him a good chinuch. Just like Rabbi Victor Miller gave a chinuch to his children and his talmidim. The people that go in those ways are continuing the fight now against all evil, whatever costume or whatever tools they're showing up in today's generation. So Baruch Hashem, Le'almin Yisrael, and there are Gedolim who do not care if people threaten them. They say, "I won't give you money." They don't care if people threaten them physically. By the Aguda convention, we had that Yoshev Rosh of the Aguda convention who screamed at it. Ramakil doesn't care. He does what's right. And we still have Gedolim who will sign letters, even though they will get hate mail, and even though they will get threats. And that's a discussion for a different time. But Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Levin, you could identify with this as this is your life. This is the story of your life. Standing up for what's right, no matter what the price.
I want to make this point. We're literally in the final moments. First of all, again, I want to chazer over. The English hotline number is 646-585-3056. Yes. And an email, a website is thesentry.com.
The Sentry, it is a Google Groups discussion, and that you could look for it on Google as the Sentry. But the email to sign up for the daily emails, it's the Sentry email at gmail.com. The Sentry, SENTRY, the Sentry
at gmail.com.
The Sentry email at gmail.com.
Email at gmail.com.
Yeah, and they have a daily updates of what's going on with the Shmad. And then there's this guy, Amram Bloy, who has Yivada Bagoyim. He's on social media, and he's turning over the world.
Now, this Yivada Bagoyim, how does one find it? It's on, what is it, on Facebook?
Yeah, you just type in Yivada Bagoyim on, I think it's Twitter, or maybe it's on...
But you can type it in English. You can type...
A little bit with social media.
You could type it in English.
He's turning over the world. Turning over the world with Yivada Bagoyim.
In English? You could type it in English?
Yeah. As in, yeah. Y-I-V-A-D-A Bagoyim, B-A-G-O-Y-I-M. Yivada Bagoyim, and over there he has clips of all and updates.
And there was one
more focus on the general, also the decharedization, but also how it shows up in the battles in the streets and how they drag boys with payas just because they have payas, like Nazi-like pictures. But instead of people in Nazi uniforms, they're wearing IDF uniforms, they're wearing military police uniforms in the so-called Jewish state.
Now, there's another site called Kol Demama.
Kol Demama is an email. It's actually a weekly email.
How does it?
It's given out in shuls. KOLDEMAMA, the letter 1, koldemama1@gmail.com, and there they give you weekly updates about what's doing. It's with pictures and short, interesting articles, short ones, and the Kol Kari, the letters from Rabbanim, and yeah.
All right, in Yisrael,
the few makabim, the few warriors that we have.
We have literally, I don't know if we have another minute or two even, but the obvious question that everybody who's a thinking person is thinking is, why doesn't somebody go into a Rosh Yeshiva in Panovich, to a Rosh Yeshiva in Chevron, to a Rosh Yeshiva in Mir, and go and ask them what's going on? Are they not aware that these things are being done to them or to their Talmidim or to et cetera, et cetera?
Right, so there is a actual video, someone going into Rebel Blavatsky in Panovich, and it shows him, Rebel Blavatsky, sitting there in shock as he's seeing all the stories and he's showing the documentation. Shmuel Aaron Weiss, he was showing it to him. I know this guy. Look at the picture of this guy. Look at his information. Look what he was taken out of yeshiva and thrown into the army. Look at him. He's fried with all these different stories. And his grandson, his Gabbai, came in, started yelling at him. Hu shliach shel Satan! Hu shliach shel Satan! Mamish, like it looked like he was possessed. Grandfather, he's a missionary from the Satan. Get rid of him. He's a missionary from Rabbi Orbach. From the Satan, from Rabbi Orbach. Get him out. And then he called his buddy, they picked him up and threw him out on his head. And this repeats itself in all the houses of all the Gedolim. Anyone who tries to update them, the gatekeepers,
so I want to
on notice to make sure no troublemakers come in here. And you throw them all out. No rock the boat.
We're forced to stop now, but we're going to continue over the coming weeks. We're going to discuss the wider grip that we didn't get to tonight of the de-Charedization of the Charedi Tzibur. I want to thank you very much, Pliny Amadi, for the gewaldige work you're doing, the chizik. You're very articulate. Hashem is giving you a lashon lemudim. You're very cogent, and it's a pleasure making your acquaintance and working with you. And it encourages me that in this Dor Yosem, there's still in the Dor Hatzoyer, there are still people, there are activists who are doing things, etc., etc. And I give myself a bracha that halavai I should have in the olam of morality and decency of Kedoshim Tiyu, that I should have the kind of people that you have in the avodah that you're doing. I thank you very much. Amen. And in Yirz Hashem, we'll be in touch. We'll be in touch again. This is Yehuda Levin. Spread the word.
הקלטתם בהצלחה את קובץ מספר 4, 3